Welcome to another episode of Decide to Heal. I am your host, Alejandra Crisafulli, and we have a ridiculously special guest with us today. I am so excited to have Dr. Jennifer Cilino-Folks with us, and this woman is just very near and dear to my heart for many reasons. She is a woman of faith. So you're a sister in Christ with me. She is a past client. She has just a heart for God and for helping people to heal. And we have a whole story behind how we actually came to know each other and how you joined in on the 180 method and became a life coach with the 180 method, even though you're already a doctor in psychology. Like there's a whole story behind that. So I'll give you a moment here to introduce yourself and share with our audience whatever it is you'd like to let them know.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. Anytime I get to see you either in person or via video, it's such a pleasure. One of the things that I think is really important for people to know is, and you mentioned it, is that I have such a heart for helping people. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I have my doctorate in psychology. That's what that means. And I'm licensed in 2 states. I currently practice. I work mostly with women, but not only, and a lot of depression, anxiety, lots of trauma, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I'm married. I have 2 German Shepherds who occupy a lot of my time, but they're also kind of my cool down time, which is really nice. It's my own mental health. But most days.
Right.
Right.
When they were puppies.
Oh, yeah. I'm from the East Coast and I live in the Midwest, and that's a whole dynamic. But I think part of what I've enjoyed really practicing and helping people for over 20 years, we're creeping up on 25 years in the field, is the ability to see someone's endpoint when they first walk in. When you first meet somebody, when I first meet somebody, what I do is I can see their potential. And based on where they tell me they want to go in life, that's kind of what I hone in on. And so when we met on our journey in Costa Rica, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, my brain was already swirling about how it was that you and the 180 could help me and my husband in our marriage, which was really powerful, but also how I could use it. So right from the get-go, that was something that I was really attracted to. So
yeah.
That's me in a nutshell.
Are you struggling with self-doubt, second-guessing your every move, no matter how much success that you achieve? Because just deep down, nothing you have done to heal has ever felt like enough. Do you want to quit that cycle and get coached live on Decide to Heal? Because in 45 minutes or less, I can help you identify the root cause of the problem you are dealing with and give you not just practical, but long-term changes that you can implement as soon as we're done. This is completely free of charge, and all you have to do is fill out the application in the description below. You know, I think what's so fascinating for me is that when I met Jennifer and her husband, Casey, and I'm going to call her Jen because we're at that. When I met Jen, what was fascinating is you are a therapist, yet you were so open and curious about coaching. And I just found that to be, again, interesting because there is such misunderstanding perhaps, or, I have definitely talked about rejecting traditional self-help models, and therapy kind of falls under that. So it's like, oh, that's interesting because here's this highly educated woman, yet you were so interested in your own healing journey through coaching and specifically the 180. So can you talk a little bit about why that is? And then we'll share more of how we got to know each other. But what had you really want to find out more about coaching? Let's just do in general and then the 180.
Yeah, so not only do I work in an ambulatory setting, so that's like just a regular outpatient clinic in within a hospital setting and have for many, many years, but I I wasn't really suffering from a diagnosable mental health problem, but I still struggled with cycles of behavior. And that was something that, sure, a really well educated and good therapist could possibly help with. But really, our system is flooded, not just in the Midwest, but I think nationwide. There's long wait lists. It's the type of therapy that I'm really drawn to, which is like that deep, deep dive, is kind of like a dying breed due to a variety of really the things that people are very well aware of, especially now with healthcare. It's increasingly driven by the insurance companies and payer sources and, all of that. And I wanted none of that. What I wanted was a less than secular, which, a spiritual approach to my healing, to my husband's healing. And my field, with some exceptions, of course, is very secular driven. It's very worldly. And it's increasingly, what can you do for me now? I want the cover up. Time is money. I want you in and out and on with your life. And again, with some exceptions, but it's very driven by that kind of stuff. And when my husband and I were looking at developing our own aspirations and trying to figure out what was getting in the way, we really wanted to do a deeper dive.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what got me into this particular methodology for coaching.
Yeah. Wow, that's fast. Okay, so it's the deep dive is really the difference.
The deep dive with God.
With God. Because there is a huge difference between trying to heal just through the self and healing through God. There's just, night and day difference. So we'll talk about that too. But so Jennifer and I met at a retreat in Costa Rica, and it was a couples retreat. So Casey was there too. And it's kind of funny because Casey's just this like soft-spoken, like gentle human being. You would never realize he does what he does.
Yeah, he's an award-winning detective. So
award-winning detective, y'all. But yet he gives off this energy of like the warmest, cuddliest, like teddy bear. Like when you want a hug, he's the guy you go to. So we had been kind of training throughout the day. And then in the evening, I had offered up like a complimentary, kind of session for whatever couples wanted to come and do like a fireside chat. Jen and Casey were sitting there on the couch when I walked up. And so I thought they were there for that coaching session. I was like, great. Oh, yay. Casey and Jen are here. So I sat down and they like start talking and I'm like, so you guys are here for the, coaching or was it another couple came up? And so I kind of just assumed you guys were in it. And Casey's just like, this is not we were just chilling on the couch having a conversation.
It was because it was so beautiful. We were just it was a very public setting. My husband, obviously, because of what we do, we're both very private people.
Yeah.
And then here we come in front of multiple people asking what seems like, fairly innocuous questions. We were talking, I think, about dreaming.
Yeah.
And about our future specifically. And at the time, my husband was very, I think, in the mindset that although we all have, dreams to grow and learn within ourselves, he was really living his dream. What he usually said or declared was, I have the wife I want. I live in the house I want, in the area I want, with he checked all the boxes already.
Mm-hmm.
And so the status quo for him was very satisfactory.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm kind of I need to be intellectually stimulated. I like to travel, and he increasingly likes to travel now. But I need more.
Yeah.
And so that in itself was kind of the clashing point for
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And enter in Alejandro, of course.
Yes.
So when you were asking, hey, all this stuff, he just shut down.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do the deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
The 180 takes you into a deep dive. This is
Yeah.
not surface level stuff. And again, why I think you were so intrigued by it. But we're just on the couch, like with other couples, just like, boom, we're going there. And poor Casey's like, can I get out of this?
Yeah.
However, by the end of the conversation, there was enough of a seed planted that he was like, Jen, we have to talk to her. We have to do something. And that led to a 6 month journey of couples coaching. And then that led to you really declaring and saying, like, this is, well, you tell us, what did you decide after your coaching?
It wasn't even after the coaching, to be honest with you. As we were moving through some of the exercises, like I said, I thought, oh my gosh, so many people could benefit from this. So I would have somebody walk into my clinical office and I would do one of the exercises with them. And boom, it would, where we were struggling to kind of move things forward, it dislodged it, it moved it forward. People felt, very comfortable with moving through things and doing that deeper dive. And it was almost like they were like, why weren't we doing this all along? and
He's
so
like, I know.
right? With each one of the exercises, it kind of, I saw this very jarring experience. And of course I'd experienced it myself in a way that if it wasn't the actual thing, the technique or the exercise or whatnot, it really brought myself and whoever I was working with into a better rapport or relationship. It was deeper and it was much more quicker.
Yeah.
Much more, it was quicker.
Quicker, yeah.
Quicker, yeah.
We can say much more
English.
quicker. Why not?
So that really kind of got me much more interested in saying, I need to know how to do this. And I need to know how to do this for people like me, people who were not going to walk into some mental health clinic because they had their dreams, their aspirations. They were already professionals. They didn't want to sit on some wait list. They wanted maybe the professional behind the coaching as well.
Yeah.
And where they were kind of on the fence. Do I need mental health treatment? Do I need coaching? They didn't want to do the research that I did because it wasn't just like, oh, here's the first coach. Alejandro seems nice. Let's do this. It was this particular coaching for these reasons. And I wanted to bring that to so many more people who needed healing.
Yeah. Okay, so this brings up a question I think a lot of people struggle with. Because there are so many coaches out there and coaching has become very popular in the last several years. I hear often from people of like, everyone's a coach now. And that's hard to hear when you've been doing it for 20 years and have invested so much into your education and training and guiding and helping people. But there's this I think people tend to knee-jerk reaction go to, I need therapy. And don't necessarily recognize why they might be going there. And it's just more a knee-jerk reaction. So there's this influx of new coaches coming in. And then there's also the knee-jerk reaction of, well, I just need therapy. Can you talk about what you have seen being on both sides and also the difference between the two so that we can be really clear on what is the difference truly for someone. Well, I'll stop there and then we can add on.
Sure. Let me just kind of give you an anecdotal example. When I talked online about being a psychologist and becoming a coach when I first started, there was a lot of like, yay, kind of just good for you kind of responses. But one response stood out to me the most, and it was from someone who had been in therapy for a while, but also knew people who kind of failed in the therapy world. And it was her experience that people who had some level of, who essentially got kicked out of the field because of some sort of ethical breach or something of that nature. And so they turned to coaching. And her experience was that coaching was more like coffee talk. And this therapist who couldn't kind of cut it in my world, that's who turned to coaching because and I've seen those types of people, and I've inherited those clients from those types of people. They sit down, they have their cup of coffee, and you talk. It's like, all right, we're just going to sit here, and I'm going to word vomit on you, and I'm just going to do that ad nauseum over and over and over again, but I never get better. And that was the perception that I thought, oh, I can really do something about that. I'm continuing to practice. I am in good standing with the American Psychological Association, and I want to become a coach, and this is why. And it was that education. So I really appreciate the question. I wanted to give you that anecdote because the field of coaching can be quite unregulated. And I think as you're looking for a coach, having someone who's got their successes in the background is such an increasingly important thing to look for as you're looking for coaching. You want to look for someone who's going to, and something like the 180 method, that is going to take a look at really something that you're not seeing and bring it out of you rather than kind of let it marinate and you're just kind of having these conversations and whatever comes up, because there are several important things to look at other than self and self-help. Because if we could do it by ourselves, girl, we would have done it already.
That's the hamster wheel or the 360. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like I was the spokesperson of, I'm going to do it myself. That was part of the problem between my husband and I, which we, fixed. I was the hero. I could figure it out. If it was going to happen, I had to do it.
Right.
And I still catch myself doing that. So, but I'm catching myself, which is nice. So the other part is if you're going to look for mental health versus coaching, there is a place for mental health. Because if you are struggling, or you don't even know if you're struggling with a mental illness, and you need a holistic approach to what's going on, meaning you want to know, do I need medication? Is that something for me? And I will tell you, there is a place for medication. Medication's place is to get you to a point where then you can do the work yourself. So it doesn't take away the work, folks. It just brings you to a place where then you can go to a coach and get the work done. You can go to a mental health professional and get the work done. A mental health professional is going to look for the problems and focus on the problem. A coach is going to help you pull out what the areas that are keeping you stuck in, and then the answers that you already know, and pull that out of you. Because what we say, obviously, we believe much more than what we're told.
Yeah.
So what we focus on is really important in pulling it out of you so that you can say it, you believe it more, and you transform quicker.
Yeah.
So that was like, that's why I try to kind of discern when I'm talking with new people who come into my non-clinic field. Yeah, you've got trauma, and we can help you with this coaching because we're going to do that deeper dive and help you heal from that.
Yeah.
Yes, you're anxious, and this is what's causing the anxiety. And you know that. I'm going to pull that out of you, and then we're going to heal that.
Yes. Love that. Okay. There's a few points I want to go back to here that
Sure.
you pointed out that were really important. And the first one is around, you know, selecting who it is that you go to. And I think I'm going to speak from the coaching world since that's where I live. I feel like because of social media, there's so many people out there that you can see are really gifted at what they do. They have a ton of followers. They spew out a lot of wisdom. You know, they're make all this money and they talk about like, I just made, you know, 6 figures in 1 month and I did it by this method. Da, da, da. So there's many, many people out there who are gifted. However, when you're picking a coach, you can't just pick based on the gift. You have to also pick based on the morals.
Mm-hmm.
I
For
think
sure.
that's where we get like, I don't know how many coaches and how many tens of thousands of dollars I have spent on, oh, that person is really good about this and this and this, only to come find out their morals are not in alignment with mine. And they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And they may not even be aware of what those reasons, like they might think, oh, I'm here to help people. But it's like it does not come out in the actual work. So I'm not downplaying those people here. I'm just saying like for you, if you're going into, I'm going to pick a coach and I'm going with this person because I see all these great things that they do, but you have to know their moral compass too. And based on that you pick, because if you're misaligned, the coaching's not going to work.
No. And you're not going to feel that the trust that when you don't want to go there, because I promise you, if you engage in coaching, you're not going to want to go there. You have to, you decide to go there. You don't
You
want
may
to.
think you want to
Yeah.
go there, but when
Yeah.
we're there, you're like, comfort
Yeah.
zone.
It's work. And
Yeah.
there's part of us that wants the easy out.
Yeah.
There's always that part of us that is going to be drawn to the take this pill and lose 50 pounds in 3 days, you know. But when you're looking for a coach, I guess I'm drawn to, you know, people like me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alejandra, you kicked our butts.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, I'm going in for my weekly butt kicking because I needed someone to see past my defenses,
Mm-hmm.
to see what I wasn't seeing, and to really help me bring that out of myself.
Yes.
And I think the fun part about the coaching that I do with the people who choose me is that they're like, all the little snippets are the same at the end of the coaching journey. It's like, she was really tough, but I had fun. We used our sense of humor. It was hard, but I knew I could trust her, and I feel so much better.
Yes. Yeah, so true. And the part you were talking about, and you have this too, it's like the butt kicking. Yeah, we get to the core root cause of things through the 180 and also through the gifting that God has given. Each one of us that chooses to become a coach has a gift there. But the moral compass is I'm in alignment with God. I don't ever again want to go against what his word is. And I mess up all the time. However, I am more than willing to humbly come to my knees and repent and do a 180. And that's the difference, that moral place. And because you and Casey felt that and knew that and saw that, my husband was at this retreat. So they saw like who I was with Eric, not just the gift of, hey, I'm going to coach you because I'm we're gifted. Jennifer's
Right.
gifted as a coach. I'm gifted as a coach, but it's the moral compass part that makes a difference. You know, when you were also sharing about the coffee, what'd you call it? Coffee chat?
Coffee talk.
Coffee talk. It made me think about, we've all seen this person, and maybe you've been this person. The one that goes to the gym every day, like consistently every day. But a year later, they look exactly the same. Like, why? Why is that? If they're there every day, diligently working out for an hour and a half every day, but they look exactly the same way they did when they started a year before, it's like there's something that's off. There's something that is not allowing that person to actually get the results that they are looking for and doing all this work to get.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I was thinking of, like when you were sharing that coffee talk, that's a major difference.
Yeah, and it's people have the right, to bring their beverage of choice. We do a lot of talking, the non-alcoholic beverage of choice, to the conversation, but there's something different about this relationship that is
But it's coach,
repairing.
coach and
Yes,
client, not
the
therapist.
coach
But yeah,
client, specifically the coach whose moral compass is Jesus,
yeah,
right? So there's that other person in the room,
yep,
whether or not the client invites them, I invite them,
yeah.
you know. So that's my connection, and it helps with the one-on-one or in the group milieu, the restoration, because really that's what we're focusing on. In the self-help world, or even in the mental health world, there's a lot of coping and dealing. I call it white knuckling. All right, well, you can get through your panic attack, but you can get through it by breathing. And while breathing helps, for sure, it really helps you. You're going to white knuckle it as you breathe, or you do the 5-4-3-2-1 method, or there's all these methodologies that are coping skills that cause people to exist through their life with really bad things, white knuckling them.
Mm.
But they still survive. Here we are.
Yeah,
They're
right,
just not living up to really what God created them to live, which is without fear.
right.
Alejandra, yeah, fear is a horrible motivator. I tell people all the time that, if you ever see, I don't know, a nature program, and you see a wolf or a coyote chasing a bunch of deer or sheep or whatever, and they're just blindly running wherever. That's how most of us, most entrepreneurs or people in business, live their life. They're driven by fear. And that makes you land in a lot of places that you never thought you were going to land in because you're running from something. Versus when you're healed, you're moving towards something, like putting something in your GPS, and you've got a guidance system.
So true.
You've got that zeroed in. So fear is such a crappy motivator. And as you're getting this healing done and you're restoring the relationship, which is not self-driven, it is about self, in that you have to heal this relationship with you.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, especially, as I believe it, and I know you do, your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is kind of like your GPS system that helps you zero in on where it is you want to go, because you're no longer being driven by all that crap. You're being guided towards something, which is much more solid. And it might not be super duper clear, like, oh, I'm going to become a travel agent now. It's super clear to me. But your values are more clear. What you don't want is more clear. Your past is not in front of your face anymore. And that is the difference.
Right. And you're living, what you do uncover very clearly is your divine purpose,
Correct.
which is very different than the like oh, this is the career, because I think we often collapse purpose with what am I meant to do with my life is as like a career or a business, and we collapse those together instead of they're separate. That's a life purpose, not a
Mhm.
divinely gifted purpose that you bring into this world with you when you're born.
Right.
That we do uncover for sure.
Yes.
Can we talk more about, that the difference between someone who really needs mental health, and that would be the path of like, okay, take the therapy path. But I think there are so many women who are at a high level, they're high producers, whether you're an entrepreneur or stay at home mom with, all the volunteering things that you do, like we're not necessarily pinpointing like you're a high producer. You're just
Mhm.
a driven woman that does suffer from depression, anxiety, and trauma. So what would be the difference between those people suffering from depression, anxiety, and trauma that more need the mental health aspect versus those who also struggle with depression, anxiety, and trauma, but it's like more of the coaching path? Can you speak to that?
So it's almost that now, again, I'm very fortunate because I can do both. So while I'm working
Right.
one-on-one with people, I can always say, now, as a psychologist, this is what I would say.
Yeah.
As a coach, this is where I want us to head.
Yep.
So
So true. The
my
benefit.
people get, yes,
Yeah,
my people
both.
get both. Yeah, they get the 1-2 punch, but not as a treating provider, but as a professional with perspective. So
Yes.
I'll put that out there. I would almost say that, again, for me, because that's my background, I would rather help people through with the coaching, and they get all of their stuff, their knowledge, that deep dive and the gift of healing in the coaching milieu first, and what's not healed and what needs more goes to the therapy area. So for example, we talk a lot about trauma, and if I can talk about
Yes,
that for a
please.
moment
Let's do
right
that.
now.
Yes.
Trauma really is something that I think is talked about a lot, and people have no idea what it is. People think it's only assaults or wartime, or
Some kind of abuse or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And even, I think people use the word trauma in a very conversational way, which for me, I feel like it's kind of disrespectful, because I make people earn their diagnoses. So you have to really meet criteria and display what we need to see to have that, because it's very serious. So, but trauma really is anything that overwhelms your current resources. So what does that even mean? It means your ability to handle things internally. Do I have the tools that I need to get through my day, to get through a tough time? Do I have the relationships I need? Can I rely on people? Do I trust people? Do I have that relationship with God, which gives me a sense of hope and purpose and greater meaning? Those are just a few examples of what I mean by resources. It could also mean money to go to a therapist, insurance, money for coaching. There's all kinds of resources out there. Quiet
So,
is a resource.
okay.
Hmm.
So when you're saying anything that overwhelms your resources, right?
Hmm.
That's what trauma is. So,
Correct.
okay, because I think people tend to look at trauma as like an event or a thing that happened to me. And
Hmm.
because of that event, I am now stuck in that traumatic experience that I relive in some way through how I think, act, feel,
Correct.
interact. But what I'm hearing you say is something different. So,
The difference is what makes something traumatic, be it an event or otherwise. So the pandemic, while the pandemic was horrible for many people because they experienced whatever, it was really good for a lot of other people, even in the mental health world. So, meaning suddenly there was no legislation that prohibited us from doing teletherapy. That was an amazing gift for a lot of people who couldn't get out of their homes for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's say you and I are both in the same same car accident. You walk away fine. I'm having nightmares. I'm really hypervigilant. I don't want to get in the car anymore. I don't want to drive. What's the difference? The difference might be your resources versus mine. So there is something that you have that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So like to kind of wrap it up, because I know that was a big explanation, but I think it deserves it. What coaching can do for both, in my example, someone like you versus someone like me, is coaching will play on and utilize your resources while it will determine for me what is it about my existence that either depleted my resources or made them not be there in the first place. So why aren't my relationships there?
Mm-hmm.
What is causing me to have these beliefs that, maybe the world is dangerous, versus you who's like, no, it's just an accident. Stuff sometimes happens. That is something that the 180 can get to, which is amazing because we treat beliefs very differently than maybe therapy. And so again, I would bring somebody, regardless of, in my example, they're in your shoes or mine, into coaching first, do the deep dive, help with, the clearing of the past and understanding some of those things. And if they're still having those nightmares, flashbacks, the physiological responses, then I would refer them to something like EMDR, which helps to rewire the brain in a different way. And that's one of the ways where coaching and therapy could be very complementary, because that person is going to be set up to be in therapy like that.
Mm-hmm.
It hastens the journey, if shortens it, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Amazing. Can you expand upon then one of the things I think we've talked about too is this idea of what the deep dive and this can be very different. It might come back to your example.
Mm-hmm.
What the deep dive actually looks like for someone who, and the 180 is very unique and different from other coaching programs. So obviously you're going to speak to the 180, but again, how would you explain what that deep dive really looks like?
I think, sometimes therapy will talk a little bit about core beliefs, and what that sometimes translates to is common beliefs. What I think the most. It looks at like frequency. What does it boil down to? Well, I think I'm a bad person the most. It circulates in my head. That's very different from something that's core, whether it's a belief about myself from a very human side and where that comes from and what my upbringing gave me, so to speak. And if I were to kind of turn that around, and we help people kind of own their stuff. I'll put it that way. They have to own their stuff. So it's not necessarily what I said, like what my upbringing, what my parents gave me, or my adoptive parents, or whatever it happened to be. It's what I made it mean about me. Mm-hmm. And that is something that I think once you start looking at, okay, I have to own how I see myself, and that I made something mean something about me in this particular way. And that has clouded my vision of how I see myself, how I see others, and how I see the world around me, kind of shaped my personality in such a way that then I'm creating the world that maybe I don't even want. I'm responsible for things that I didn't even know that I was responsible for, and maybe blaming others for.
Yeah.
And when
I
you are, go ahead.
no, go please go ahead.
When you're able to take ownership of that,
Hmm.
that's so powerful. To some people, that sounds very scary. Like, what? They view ownership and fault, like blame, as
Hmm.
synonymous, and they're not.
They're
When
not.
you can own certain things, it gives you power rather than takes it away.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I'm all about.
Yeah, it's so true. Playing the victim, I think,
Mm.
is like nobody wants to play the victim. Nobody's like, yeah, I want to, sign me up for that. However, we actually do like it
Hmm.
because there's this sense of then it's not my fault. They hurt me. This happened to me. And so I feel like it's such an unconscious thing that we end up playing the victim in so many different ways, from our relationship with our partners to business to money to health, that it is part of the biggest problem.
Yep.
And this is what makes the 180 very powerful, along with the foundation of God. Because when you have that
Mhm.
foundation of God, anything you take ownership of loses its like power, basically.
The
It
hooks.
exactly. It's like unhooking of things. But that ownership is so powerful.
Mhm.
And it's a place of freedom is the word that was coming up. But
Yes.
when you look at traditional self-help of something like, let's be specific here, okay? Because I think a lot of people suffer from, especially women who are in, this highly driven, ambitious woman, does suffer a lot from lack of confidence. You
Hmm.
would think that she doesn't, but I mean, I have certainly been there many a times. Comparison, judgment, like all those things that happen. And it comes down to having a lack of confidence.
Hmm.
And then when we start digging in to get to where does that lack of confidence really about? Well, it's about that I think that I am, or have this view or limiting belief that I'm not good enough and that I'm stupid or that I'm not worthy. Or that I don't matter, or that my voice doesn't matter, whatever it might be, that leads to the lack of confidence. So when we're talking about ownership, we're talking about owning
Hmm.
I'm not good enough, or I'm not important, or I
Hmm.
don't matter, which is such reverse 180 from what traditional self help models teach, right?
Yes, I mean, and again, putting therapy in the self-help kind of world is it's kind of sandwiching some things, but
Sure.
the difference is that one tries to get you to deny in terms of like, no, I'm done with it. I've healed and I will never feel this again and I should never think this again. And when you do coaching the right way, the 180 way, and you're owning the people won't like me, you can recognize it when it comes up much more quickly because you're like, oh, that's mine. That's
Mm.
my people won't like me. And now I can figure out, okay, how do I now not create this circumstance where, in fact, people won't like me? When I talk to people about this kind of creation of circumstance and the outlook that we have and how that's reflected back to us, because it's what we make it mean about us. Now I'm a woman of a certain age, so bear with me. When back in the day, we used to kind of put the suntan oil and then like we'd have the mirrors or
Yeah, yeah.
the reflective
Yeah,
piece.
the
I want you to
tinfoil or
have the
something.
right? Yeah. I want you to have that image because what we're doing is we're putting something up here almost like a reflective thing, and what we're projecting out is reflecting back to us. So that's in fact what we're seeing.
Yep.
And we're walking around with these invisible reflective collars, the cone of shame, right? And and even though we have some healing, it's still ours.
Mm-hmm.
It still will pop up when something new or different is required of us, or we are pushing ourselves harder. So we need to dig deeper. And it's like, oh, there it is again, because we just need a deeper level of healing. So there's this thing that now, if I go to self help and it comes back up again, that puts me in a position to be a perpetual consumer. So I go from this self-help to this self-help to this mastermind to this thing because, oh, they can help me, they can help me, they can help me. And there's lots of people who can offer lots of things, and we're always learning, but we don't want to be perpetual consumers.
Mm-hmm.
We want to take something and learn from it and heal from it so that then we've got a period of time where we can grow. Then when more is required of us, then we can go deeper in coaching.
Yes.
And reflect back on, all right, what is that thing that I'm putting out there again? Oh, it's the people won't like me, or here's a new behavior. I fall silent. So owning that, being free from that, gives us a lot more, again, freedom, power to move in that direction, that GPS direction that we want.
Yeah. And think about things you own in your life, right? There is that sense of like, oh, well, that's mine. And there's if you own your car or you own your home or whatever it is that you own, something very special to you, a bike, whatever, but you own it. There is this sense that is very powerful and a sense of freedom because you own that.
And Alejandra, I know I'm interrupting you, but
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
if we think about the stuff that people own that they shouldn't, and the
Yes.
stuff that we want people to own that they don't,
Yep.
so people will say, oh, my depression or my ADHD or my this, and we're like, waha.
No.
Let's not own that. I'll call that the pathology. But instead, let's own the genuine pieces of you
Yes.
that, like the people pleasing. One of my favorite things that I own are my yeses and nos. There's nothing more powerful than saying yes or no to someone and being okay with it, or
Yep.
saying yes or no to myself and being okay with it,
Yep.
and feeling very good about that.
Yes. So true. All right. Wow. This was powerful conversation. And hey, we get like this conversation about ownership is challenging. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
like, wait, that makes no sense whatsoever. I don't even see how that would be a thing because it is taught like do your affirmations that tell you the opposite of whatever it is that you're believing or sensing or viewing. And if that actually worked, ask yourself this, would you still be in the same cycle you're in? It's another coping, white knuckling tool. So ownership is not something that, it comes later in the 180. It's much later because it is something that the human part of us will want to resist and deny until there's a surrendering and a softening and a giving it to God and allowing him fully in to be like, this is the best way to release and move forward. So this was a deep conversation, Jennifer. Thank you so much for this. And I hope you all got a lot from this. I'd love to hear your comments and questions that you have. Jennifer is available to be taking on clients. And listen, she's got the benefit of both. If you're looking for a therapist and we're like, well, maybe coaching, I should do coaching. Well, here you go. You get the 1-2 punch, as she said.
Right.
Any final thoughts for you before we finish up?
Of course, I just want to end it with God. We have to recognize that as humans, we experience God in a very fallen way, and we're horrible representations of God, but he's perfect. We are not. So if there is somebody who is struggling with, okay, well, I'm not the churchiest person in the world. I don't know if the 180 method is for me. This isn't about religion. It's
No.
not about churchiness, and it's not about being perfect. It's about really coming back to an honest conversation between you and the creator of all, and really linking arms and being very real about it. When I work with people, it's about real conversations, not these and thous and those and all of those things. If you're struggling with that relationship, that's okay too, because it's all about restoration, and we'll walk you through it.
That's right. Oh, well said. Thank you for that completion. Relationship, not religion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Decide to Heal. Thank you, Dr. Jennifer Cilino-Folks. Love all of you so much. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this episode, please share it with someone else and review also. And we will be back for another episode of Decide to Heal.